Rain was falling slowly in the dark city, and Ethan was riding his small delivery bike with a bag full of hot food. He was tired because the night had already been long, and many customers had been rude or gave no tip. But Ethan kept working because he needed the money for rent. His jacket was wet, his shoes cold, and his stomach empty. But he still smiled a little when he saw the address of his last delivery for the night. It was an old building, broken lights hanging from the entrance, and the hall smelled like damp air and rust. Ethan knocked on the door, gave the food to the customer, and turned back to leave quickly. He only wanted to go home, change into dry clothes, and rest. As he stepped outside, his eyes caught something strange near the edge of the building's stairs. At first, he thought it was only a piece of plastic, or maybe a child's toy dropped by mistake. But then, he noticed it was glowing softly, a small cube with strange lines running across it like veins of light. He frowned, walked closer, and bent down to pick it up. The glow was not bright, but it was enough to shine even through the rain. Ethan touched it, and the moment his fingers brushed its surface, the cube came alive. It hummed gently, like a tiny engine starting, and stuck to his palm. He tried to shake it off, but the cube clung to his skin as if it had a will of its own. Ethan's heart raced. He looked around nervously, but the street was empty except for a few flickering lamps. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. The cube vibrated, sending a warm sensation up his arm. Suddenly, his delivery bag's zipper popped open, and his phone screen went black. He pulled it out, pressing the power button again and again, but it didn't work. The cube made a faint humming sound, like it was drinking the energy around it. Fear filled Ethan's chest. He had seen weird gadgets in tech shops, but nothing like this. This felt alive. Rain grew heavier, and thunder rolled across the sky. Ethan stuffed the cube into his bag, hoping to hide it until he figured out what to do. As soon as he let it go, the humming stopped, and his phone flickered back to life. He gasped in surprise and stared at his hand, still feeling warmth in his skin where the toy had touched him. Something about it was not normal. It was not just a toy, not just a gadget. It was something else, something that did not belong in this city, maybe not even on this planet. He got back on his bike, riding fast through the wet streets, water splashing under the tires. Every shadow looked longer than usual, every sound sharper. He could not stop thinking about the cube. Who had dropped it? Was someone searching for it right now? He wanted to throw it away, to leave it on the road and forget about it. But a strange thought kept him from doing that. The toy had chosen him. It had stuck to his hand for a reason, and inside him, curiosity burned hotter than fear. When he reached his small apartment, Ethan locked the door and dropped his wet bag on the floor. He pulled out the cube carefully. It looked quiet again, no light, no sound, just a dull piece of strange metal. But when he touched it with both hands, it lit up once more. The lines across its surface glowed bright blue, and the cube shifted slightly, almost like it was breathing. Ethan gasped and stumbled back. His laptop screen on the desk suddenly blinked, filling with static, and the light bulb above his head flickered wildly. He grabbed the cube and held it close to his chest. As soon as he did, everything calmed. The room grew quiet, and only the faint hum of the cube remained. Ethan sat down, staring at it. "What are you?" he whispered. The cube gave no answer, but the glow seemed to pulse daywalk like a heartbeat. He felt a strange connection, as if it was listening to him, waiting for something. Fear mixed with wonder inside him. His life had always been simple. Wake up, work, deliver food, and sleep. But now, something impossible had entered his world. He had no idea if this was a blessing or a curse. That night, sleep did not come easily. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the cube glowing in the dark, whispering with its hum, as if calling him. He dreamed of strange stars, unknown skies, and voices in a language he had never heard. And even in his dreams, the toy was there, watching him. By morning, Ethan knew one thing for sure. His life had changed forever. Sunlight pushed through the broken blinds of Ethan's small apartment, but the room still felt heavy and strange. He rubbed his eyes and sat up, looking at the desk where he had left the cube. It was not glowing anymore, just sitting there like a dull piece of metal. For a moment, he almost convinced himself it had been a dream, but when he reached out, the lines of light returned and spread across its surface. The hum filled the air again, soft and deep, almost like a cat's purr, but sharper, mechanical. Ethan pulled his hand back quickly, but the cube kept glowing for a few seconds before going silent again. His heart raced because he knew it wasn't normal. He stood up and made some coffee, trying to think clearly. While sipping the hot drink, he kept glancing at the cube. The more he looked at it, the more alive it seemed. Suddenly, his old television turned on by itself, showing only static. The microwave light blinked, and his phone vibrated even though no call or message had arrived. Ethan nearly spilled his cup as he looked around in panic. He moved closer to the cube and touched it again. The moment his skin brushed it, everything stopped. Silence filled the apartment. His phone lay still. The microwave was quiet, and the TV went black again. He pulled his hand away, breathing heavily. The cube was definitely controlling the electronics around him. He picked it up carefully and turned it in his hands. To his surprise, the cube shifted its shape. The straight lines twisted, folding into each other until it turned into something that looked like a small insect with metallic wings. Ethan dropped it on the desk with a loud gasp. The object crawled forward, wings fluttering weakly, then folded back into a cube with a soft snap. His mind spun with questions. What kind of technology could do this? Was it some secret government invention? Or was it something not even from Earth? The noise from his neighbors suddenly reminded him he wasn't alone in the building. A woman from the floor below shouted angrily, "What's that buzzing sound? It's keeping my baby awake." Another voice from the hallway added, "Stop messing with your weird gadgets, Ethan." He froze, staring at the cube. Could they hear it too? He quickly stuffed the cube inside his bag and zipped it shut. The sound stopped instantly, but his neighbors continued complaining outside. Fear crawled up his spine. If normal people could sense something strange, then maybe others could track it too. Later in the day, Ethan decided to hide the cube deeper. He opened the drawer under his bed and placed it there, covering it with clothes. But that didn't solve the problem. Whenever he walked near the drawer, he could feel a faint vibration, like it was calling him. His apartment lights flickered again and again. He sat at the edge of his bed, holding his head in his hands. His life had been difficult, but at least it was normal. Now, because of one glowing toy, everything was breaking apart. When night came, things grew worse. Ethan heard soft knocks at his door. At first, he thought it was just a drunk neighbor. But when he opened the door, no one was there. Instead, he saw faint scratch marks on the floor leading up to his apartment. His heart pounded hard as he shut the door quickly and locked it. He looked at the drawer, knowing somehow it was connected to the strange visitors or sounds outside. Unable to resist, he pulled the cube out again. This time, it opened on its own. The glowing lines stretched and formed shapes in the air. A thin blue mist rose from it, swirling in front of him until it became an image. He stared, wide-eyed, as a figure appeared, small, like a child, but not human. Its big eyes shone with sadness. Its mouth moved in words Ethan couldn't understand. Still, he felt the meaning. The child was lost. The cube was not just a toy. It was a messenger, a piece of another world. Ethan whispered, "Who are you?" His voice shook, but the figure only repeated the same strange sounds. The only word Ethan understood was faint but clear, home. The child pointed toward the sky before fading back into mist and vanishing. The cube closed with a snap, returning to silence. Ethan's chest felt heavy. He sat back slowly, trying to breathe. What had he just seen? A memory? A ghost? Or was the cube showing him a message from far away? The night stretched on, and Ethan barely moved from the desk. He couldn't sleep. Every time he tried to shut his eyes, the image of the alien child appeared in his mind. He thought about throwing the cube away, but deep inside he knew he couldn't. The child had asked for help. And somehow, in a way he couldn't explain, Ethan felt responsible. The next morning, the building manager knocked on his door, warning him that people had been complaining about strange sounds and flickering lights coming from his apartment. Ethan apologized nervously, promising it wouldn't happen again. But as soon as the man left, Ethan sank into a chair and looked at the cube on the desk. It looked harmless, quiet, almost like it was pretending. Yet, Ethan knew the truth. It wasn't just a toy. It was alive in some way, carrying a secret far bigger than him. He wondered if he should take it to the police, but then the memory of the alien child's voice came back. Home. If he gave it up, would the child ever find its home again? And why did Ethan feel like this cube had chosen him? He clenched his fists and sighed. He didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was certain. His life would never be normal again. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the cube resting on Ethan's desk. He sat close, staring at it, afraid to blink in case it changed again. His hands trembled as he reached out, and the surface of the cube lit up with soft blue light. The air above it shimmered like heat rising from the ground, and then a strange image appeared. At first it was blurry, like smoke forming into a shape. Slowly, it became clear. Ethan's breath caught in his throat when he saw a small figure standing in the glowing light. It looked like a child, but not human. Its body was thin and delicate, its skin glowing faintly as if lit from the inside. The eyes were too big for its face, shining with sadness, and its lips moved as if whispering words. Ethan leaned forward, trying to listen. The language was strange, sharp and soft at the same time, not like anything he had ever heard before. Still, he felt something in his chest when the child spoke. He could not understand the words, but he could feel their meaning. The figure raised a trembling hand, pointing upward as though toward the sky. Its voice broke, carrying a single clear sound through the static of the strange language. Home. The word echoed in Ethan's ears, simple yet heavy, filling the small apartment with weight. He froze, his heart pounding. The child wasn't just an image. It was real in some way, reaching out to him through this cube, pleading for something he didn't understand. The child's face twisted with pain, as if it was crying. Blue streams of light ran down its cheeks like glowing tears. Ethan felt a sharp ache in his chest watching it. It reminded him of every lonely night he had lived, every moment when no one was there to help him. This wasn't just a toy. This was a lifeline, a call for help. He whispered, "I don't know what you want, but I can't just ignore you." His voice shook, but he knew the cube could sense his feelings, even if the child couldn't understand his words. The image flickered, breaking apart into shards of light before pulling itself back together. The child seemed weaker, like it was fading. It pressed both hands together against its chest, almost like begging. Ethan leaned closer, desperate to understand. He asked louder, "Who are you? Where are you? What is this thing?" The child's mouth opened again, but only strange sounds came out. His laptop screen lit up suddenly, filled with symbols and moving lines. Ethan turned toward it in shock. The cube was trying to translate. The symbols shifted quickly, twisting into shapes that almost looked like letters, then scrambled again. His screen went black before one word appeared in bright letters, "Lost." Ethan's jaw dropped. He turned back to the image. The alien child stood there with its glowing eyes wide open, nodding slowly. Ethan whispered the word out loud, "Lost." The cube pulsed in his hands, glowing brighter for a moment, almost like it understood. Suddenly, the air in the room grew heavy. A loud buzz filled his ears, and the hologram of the child flickered violently. Ethan jumped back, thinking it was about to disappear. But instead, the child's face changed to panic, its mouth opening wide as if screaming. No sound came out, but Ethan could feel the terror. He looked around his apartment quickly, his body tense. The lights flickered, and outside his window, a dark van rolled slowly down the street. Ethan's stomach twisted. Someone else was searching for this cube. The child was warning him. The hologram stretched forward, almost like it wanted to step out of the light and into his world. For a second, Ethan thought it would become real. The child reached out a glowing hand, pointing directly at Ethan. Then it tapped its own chest and repeated one clear word, "Home." The glow dimmed, and the image faded into smoke before vanishing completely. The cube snapped shut, silent again. Ethan sat frozen, his breath heavy and fast, his mind racing. He held the cube tightly, feeling its faint warmth against his skin. His life until now had been about paying rent, making deliveries, surviving one day at a time. But now an alien child had just asked him for help. Something far bigger than his small world had landed in his hands. Fear and wonder mixed inside him, leaving him shaking. He whispered again, "Home? You just want to go home." The cube pulsed softly, almost like it was answering him. He stood and walked to the window, pulling the curtain aside to peek outside. The van was still there, parked under the broken streetlight. Two shadowy figures stepped out, their movements stiff and deliberate. They looked like humans from a distance, but Ethan felt something wrong about them. His skin crawled, and he quickly shut the curtain again. His thoughts went back to the child's scream. Whoever those people were, they weren't here to help. They were here to take the cube, maybe destroy it, and that meant destroying the only connection the child had. Ethan's knees felt weak, and he sat on the edge of his bed. The cube rested in his palm, glowing faintly. He wondered why it had chosen him. Out of all the people in the city, why him? He was nobody, just a delivery guy struggling to survive. Yet, as the cube pulsed softly in his hand, he felt something new: responsibility. He had been ignored and forgotten his whole life, but this child was counting on him now. He didn't know what was coming next, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just about a strange toy anymore. This was about a lost life, a desperate voice calling across the stars, and Ethan was the only one who could answer. Ethan could not stop looking through the gap in his curtain. The van outside was still there, its engine humming quietly. Two figures stood near it, pretending to smoke, but Ethan's eyes caught the way their heads moved, sharp and mechanical, not like normal humans. Their eyes scanned the street too carefully, their posture too stiff. Ethan's stomach tightened. He knew they were here for the cube. His mind kept flashing back to the alien child's face when it screamed, warning him. He backed away from the window and clutched the cube. It was quiet in his hands, almost pretending to be harmless, but Ethan could feel the warmth pulsing against his skin like a heartbeat. His apartment suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. Every creak in the hallway made him jump. He grabbed his phone to call someone, but the screen froze and died again. The cube hummed faintly, interfering with the signal. Great! Ethan muttered under his breath. Now it's just me and you. A sudden loud knock on his door made him nearly drop the cube. He froze, his body stiff, heart thundering in his chest. The knock came again, louder this time. Delivery? A voice called, but it was flat, wrong, like someone reading a word without knowing its meaning. Ethan didn't move, didn't answer. He pressed himself against the wall, holding his breath. The knob rattled as if someone tried to open it. After a moment, silence returned, but Ethan could hear soft footsteps moving away down the hallway. He closed his eyes and whispered, "They know I'm here." The cube vibrated more strongly, almost urging him to move. Ethan stuffed it into his bag, zipped it shut, and grabbed his jacket. He didn't know where he would go, but staying here was no longer safe. He turned off all the lights and slowly opened the window instead of the door. The fire escape outside was rusty and wet from last night's rain. He climbed out carefully, trying not to make noise. As he lowered himself, he saw one of the strange men standing at the corner of the street, looking directly at his building. Their eyes met for half a second, and Ethan's blood ran cold. The man tilted his head in a slow, unnatural motion, then whispered something into a small device in his hand. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to run. He dashed down the fire escape, nearly slipping on the wet metal, but managed to land in the alley behind the building. The cube inside his bag grew warmer, vibrating harder as if reacting to danger. His bike was chained near the dumpster, and he rushed toward it, fumbling with the lock. The van's headlights flashed on the main road. The figures were moving fast now, their steps heavy but precise. Ethan's hands shook as he yanked the chain free and jumped onto the bike. The engine roared to life, echoing too loudly in the quiet street. He sped off, tires splashing through puddles, heart racing faster than the bike itself. The van pulled onto the road behind him, its dark shape following closely. Ethan bent low, gripping the handles tight as the city lights blurred past. His mind screamed at him to throw the cube away, to let it go and end this nightmare. But something inside stopped him. He remembered the child's glowing eyes, the word home, and the tears on its small face. He couldn't abandon it, not now. The van honked sharply, trying to push him off the road. Ethan swerved, almost hitting a parked car. His bag rattled, and the cube inside gave off a bright flash through the fabric. Suddenly, the streetlights above flickered and exploded one by one as he rode past, showering sparks onto the road. The van swerved too, almost losing control. Ethan gasped. Realizing the cube was protecting him somehow, disrupting everything around them. He turned into a narrow alley, hoping to lose them, but the van screeched behind him, forcing its way in. His bike jumped over potholes, his breath coming in short gasps. Then, without warning, the cube inside his bag grew scorching hot. The zipper burned his side, and Ethan cried out. He stopped the bike and tore the bag open. The cube floated into the air on its own, glowing so brightly it lit up the entire alley. The humming turned into a deep vibration that shook the walls. Ethan stepped back, shielding his eyes. The van's engine sputtered and died as it approached, its lights blinking before shutting off completely. The two figures stepped out, their movements jerky, their faces hidden under the dim light. For the first time, Ethan saw their skin, pale, stretched thin like wax, with glowing veins running beneath. They were not human at all. The cube spun in the air and released a wave of blue energy, knocking the figures back. They crashed into the walls but quickly stood again, hissing in a language Ethan couldn't understand. Their eyes glowed with the same strange light as the cube. Ethan realized with horror they were connected to it, but not like the child. They were hunters, trackers, following the signal. The cube flew back into Ethan's hands, still burning hot, but he held on tight. The glow dimmed slightly, almost like it was tired. He could feel its fear, its desperation. The hunters stepped closer, their movements slow, as if they knew Ethan had nowhere to run. His breath quickened, his legs trembling, but then the cube pulsed once more. A beam of light shot upward into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. The hunters hissed louder, shielding their faces. Ethan looked at the beam, his mind racing. It wasn't just a toy. It was calling for help. He didn't know who would answer, but he prayed it wasn't too late. He jumped back onto his bike and sped away while the hunters were still recovering, clutching the cube close to his chest. He didn't know how long he could keep running, but one thing was certain. This was only the beginning. Ethan's hands shook as he parked his bike in a dark alley far away from his apartment. His chest rose and fell quickly, and sweat dripped down his face, even though the night was cold. The cube lay heavy in his hand, glowing faintly, almost as if it had a heartbeat. He stared at it, whispering, "What am I supposed to do with you?" But the cube, as always, gave no answer. It only pulsed softly, like a living thing waiting for his choice. He knew the hunters would not stop. Already they had tracked him down once, and they would keep coming until they got the cube. His mind filled with fear. One option was simple. Leave the cube on the street, let them take it, and go back to his normal life. But as soon as that thought came, the memory of the alien child's face filled his mind. The eyes, wide and full of tears, the single desperate word, home. Ethan clenched his fists tightly. If he abandoned the cube now, he would be abandoning that child forever. His stomach twisted in conflict. He imagined himself walking into the nearest police station, handing the cube over and letting the government deal with it. That way, it would no longer be his problem. But deep inside, he knew better. The government would treat it like a weapon, study it, and maybe even destroy it. The alien child's chance of going home would vanish. The cube would become just another tool for people hungry for power. Ethan didn't trust them. He sat on the edge of a broken crate, running his hand through his hair. "I'm nobody," he muttered. "I just deliver food. I'm not a hero." The cube glowed brighter for a moment, almost as if it disagreed. It vibrated gently in his hand, and Ethan felt warmth spreading up his arm. Somehow, it was showing him something. Courage. The feeling was so strange that his chest grew heavy with emotion. Suddenly, the cube opened on its own. Blue light spilled out, rising into the air above his lap. The alien child appeared again, its image shaky and weak. Its voice was soft, broken, and filled with desperation. Ethan couldn't understand most of the words, but the meaning was clear. The child was asking for help. This time, it even fell to its knees, pressing its glowing hands together as though begging. Ethan's throat went dry. He felt tears prick his eyes, though he didn't know why. "I don't know how to help you," he said softly. "I don't even know who you are." But the child kept looking at him with those enormous, sad eyes. The word home came again, faint and trembling. Then the image flickered and collapsed into mist, fading away into the cube. The glow dimmed, leaving Ethan in silence. He sat there for a long time, thinking about his life. Nobody had ever asked him for help before. People only asked him for food, and even then, they rarely looked him in the eyes. But now, across the stars, a child had reached out to him. It needed him. Not the government, not some soldier, not some scientist. Him, Ethan, a man who thought he was nothing. The choice burned inside him. He couldn't walk away. Suddenly, a noise snapped him out of his thoughts. Tires screeched nearby. Ethan jumped to his feet, shoving the cube back into his bag. Through the gap in the alley, he saw the same black van rolling slowly past, its headlights cutting through the darkness. His heart hammered in his chest. They had found him again. He pressed himself against the wall, holding his breath, praying they would not see him. The van paused for a moment, then moved on, but Ethan knew it wouldn't be long before they circled back. He looked down at his bag. The cube pulsed faintly, like it was alive and scared. Ethan made his choice in that moment. He wasn't going to give it up. He wasn't going to surrender it to the hunters, or the government, or anyone else. He would protect it, no matter what it cost him. He whispered to himself, "You're not alone. I'll help you find home." The cube glowed brighter, as if it had heard him. Warmth spread through his whole body, calming his fear and giving him strange strength. Ethan stood straighter, his eyes sharper than before. He was still afraid, but now there was something else inside him. Resolve. For the first time in his life, he felt like he had a purpose. The night air grew colder, and the streets around him fell silent. Ethan knew his choice had set him on a path he couldn't turn back from. If the hunters were searching for him, they would chase him until the end. But he also knew the cube was guiding him. Maybe it would lead him to answers, to the child, to something greater than himself. He slung the bag over his shoulder and started walking, his steps firm even though his body was tired. In his heart, the fear had not vanished, but it was no longer controlling him. The hunters might come, the government might notice, and the world might turn against him, but Ethan had chosen his side. The image of the child stayed in his mind, the small figure, the trembling voice, the glowing tears. That image would not leave him. It pushed him forward, made him stronger. He no longer saw the cube as a curse. It was a responsibility. As he disappeared into the shadows of the city, Ethan knew one truth. His old life as a simple delivery man was over. He was now a guardian of something extraordinary, and no matter what dangers came, he would not let the child's voice go unheard. He would not let it be lost again. Ethan ran through the dark streets with the bag clutched tightly to his chest. The cube inside glowed faintly, as if it knew the danger was close. Behind him, the black van roared, its tires screeching against the wet road. He jumped on his bike again, speeding down narrow alleys, heart pounding like a drum. The hunters were relentless. No matter where he turned, they always seemed to follow. The cube grew hotter against his side, vibrating faster, like it was both scared and ready. Ethan shouted breathlessly, "I don't know where you want me to go." But the cube only pulsed harder, brighter, almost like giving him directions without words. The city lights blurred past. Neon signs flickered, and rain splashed into his eyes, making it hard to see. The van behind him honked, pushing closer. A metallic arm suddenly stretched out from the passenger side, glowing with strange energy. Ethan swerved just in time as a blast of light shot past him, shattering a traffic pole. His breath caught. These weren't men with weapons. The hunters themselves were weapons. The cube suddenly shook violently in his bag. The zipper burst open and it floated out, spinning in the air above his bike. Ethan gasped, terrified it would leave him, but instead, the cube shot a wave of blue light into the ground ahead. A glowing crack ripped through the pavement, and suddenly the road itself seemed to split open. A shimmering circle appeared, spinning with bright energy. It was a portal. Ethan had no time to think. The van behind him accelerated, its headlights blinding. The hunters were shouting in their strange language. Without another choice, Ethan gritted his teeth and rode straight into the portal. The world around him blurred, and a loud rush filled his ears, like wind roaring through endless tunnels. His stomach twisted, and his body felt weightless for a moment. Then, with a crash, he landed on rocky ground. The bike tipped, and he rolled painfully onto the dirt. He groaned, lifting his head, and froze. The world around him was not Earth. The sky above was purple and alive with streaks of green lightning. Enormous floating rocks drifted slowly across the horizon. Plants glowed with soft light, and creatures with too many legs crawled across the ground, leaving trails of sparks behind them. The air was heavy but clean, carrying strange sounds of unknown animals echoing in the distance. Ethan struggled to his feet, staring in awe. What is this place?" he whispered. The cube floated in front of him, glowing brighter than ever. It hovered close, almost like it was waiting for him to follow. Ethan swallowed hard and took a shaky step. He was no longer in his city. He was in another world. He moved carefully across the uneven ground. The bike lay broken behind him and hacked useless in this alien place. Strange plants bent toward him as he passed, their glowing tips brushing against his arms. He felt like he was walking in a dream, but every step reminded him it was real. His boots crunched against stones that sparked with blue light. Above him, 2 moons hung in the sky, casting silver shadows. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed through the air. Ethan spun around to see a massive creature crawling down a floating rock. It looked like a mix of a lizard and a bird, with sharp claws and glowing eyes. His breath quickened. He stumbled back, clutching the cube instinctively. The creature spread its wings, letting out another ear-splitting scream. Before Ethan could run, the cube pulsed violently in his hand. A burst of energy shot outward, forming a shield around him. The creature dove, slamming into the barrier with a flash of sparks. Ethan fell to his knees, shielding his eyes. The shield held, forcing the creature to recoil with a frustrated roar. Ethan stared at the cube in shock. "You're protecting me?" he whispered. The creature circled above, but the cube spun rapidly, releasing another pulse of light. This time, the alien child's image appeared again, clearer than before. The child raised its hand and pointed to the distance, toward a glowing mountain that rose high into the purple sky. Ethan understood immediately. It wanted him to go there. That was the next step. He got to his feet, chest still heaving, and nodded slowly. "All right," he said to the cube. "I'll trust you." The cube pulsed warmly in response, almost like it approved of his words. Ethan began walking toward the mountain, each step filled with both fear and wonder. Behind him, the creature let out another cry, but it didn't follow. It was as if the cube's power had scared it away. The air grew colder as he moved forward, and the glowing plants swayed as if whispering to one another. His mind raced with questions. What was this world? Was the child here? Was this their home, or just another place on the journey? The path was rough, but Ethan kept moving. For the first time, he didn't feel like just a delivery man. Every breath, every step felt important, like he was part of something far bigger than himself. The cube hummed softly in his hand, steady and calm, guiding him forward. Even though fear still lingered inside him, something stronger had begun to grow. Purpose. He climbed a ridge, looking back at the shimmering portal still spinning faintly behind him. He knew the hunters might follow. They wouldn't give up easily. But here, in this strange new world, he felt like he had a chance. The cube had brought him here for a reason, and he wasn't going to fail the child who had begged for help. The purple sky rumbled with thunder, and distant lights flashed like falling stars. Ethan tightened his grip on the cube and pressed on toward the glowing mountain. He didn't know what waited for him there, but deep in his heart, he was ready. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just running away. He was running toward something, toward answers, toward destiny. Ethan climbed higher and higher toward the glowing mountain, his legs burning with every step. The cube hummed softly in his hand, guiding him, giving him strength even though his body wanted to collapse. The purple sky cracked with thunder, and glowing winds swirled around him. But he didn't stop. His heart told him that at the top of this place, he would finally understand why the cube had chosen him. As he reached a plateau, the cube floated from his hand and hovered in front of him. Light burst out, wrapping around him in waves of blue and gold. The air shimmered, and suddenly he wasn't just standing on the mountain anymore. He was inside a vision, surrounded by stars and endless space. In front of him appeared the alien child again, but this time the image was brighter, clearer, and filled with hope instead of fear. The child reached out its hand, and for the first time, Ethan heard its voice in words he could understand. "You carried me," the child said softly, its voice echoing like music. "You protected me when others wanted to destroy me. You brought me home." Ethan's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say. He had thought of himself as nothing more than a man who delivered food, someone no one noticed, someone unimportant. And now this child, this being from another world, was looking at him with gratitude. The vision shifted, and Ethan saw a grand alien city, tall silver towers rising under the purple sky. Alien figures stood in rows, their glowing eyes watching him. At the center of them all was a throne, and upon it sat a larger version of the child's kind, wearing a crown of light. The cube floated forward and settled in front of the throne, glowing brighter until it split open, releasing a pulse of energy. The alien king rose, his deep voice filling the air. "The guardian has delivered our child back to us." Ethan's eyes widened. The child wasn't just any alien. It was royal. The cube had been a beacon, a protector, carrying the essence of the child across worlds until it found someone strong enough to keep it safe. That person had been him. The hunters had been enemies of this royal line, desperate to capture the beacon and erase the child's legacy. Without Ethan, they would have succeeded. The aliens in the vision all bowed their heads toward him. Ethan shook his own. "I'm no guardian," he whispered. "I'm just a guy who rides a bike and delivers food." But the alien king's eyes glowed with certainty. A true guardian is not chosen by strength of body, but by strength of heart. You proved yourself when you refused to abandon the lost. You proved yourself when you stood against the hunters. You are the chosen one. The cube spun faster, filling the vision with a blinding light. When the glow faded, Ethan found himself standing back on the mountaintop. The cube floated above his hands, no longer humming weakly but shining with power. Energy flowed through him, filling him with warmth and courage. He felt stronger, taller, more alive than ever before. The cube had bonded with him fully. He wasn't just protecting it anymore. It was now part of him. The ground trembled suddenly. Ethan turned and saw the portal behind him tearing wider. The hunters had followed. Their black forms emerged from the light, taller now, their eyes burning brighter with fury. They hissed in their strange tongue, stepping closer with claws ready. Ethan's breath caught, but this time he didn't back away. The cube glowed in his hands, and his fear melted into determination. The hunters lunged forward, but Ethan raised the cube. A wave of blue energy blasted out, striking the first hunter and sending it crashing against the rocks. The second rushed at him, claws slashing, but the cube shifted in his grip, unfolding into a spear of light. Ethan swung it instinctively, striking the creature across the chest. Sparks flew as the hunter collapsed with a scream. Ethan stared at the weapon in his hands, shocked, but then he tightened his grip. He wasn't powerless anymore. The remaining hunters circled him, growling. Ethan's heart raced, but the cube pulsed like a steady drum, keeping him calm. The child's voice echoed in his mind, "Guardian." With a yell, Ethan charged forward, fighting not with skill but with courage. The cube guided his movements, striking, blocking, releasing bursts of light that shattered the enemy's strength. One by one, the hunters fell until the last of them staggered back, hissing in fear before fleeing into the broken portal. The light collapsed behind it, leaving only silence. Ethan dropped to his knees, exhausted, his chest heaving. The cube floated gently beside him, glowing warmly like a companion. He looked at it and whispered, "It's over, isn't it?" The cube pulsed softly, almost like a nod. For the first time since he had picked it up on that rainy night, the weight of fear lifted from his shoulders. But as he looked at the alien horizon, the glowing plants, the silver moons, the endless sky, he realized his life would never go back to normal. He wasn't just Ethan, the delivery guy, anymore. He was the guardian of a royal child, a protector chosen by something greater than himself. The aliens had trusted him, the cube had chosen him, and the galaxy now knew his name. He stood slowly, staring at the glowing mountain that still pulsed with energy. The path ahead was unknown, filled with danger, but Ethan felt no hesitation. He had already made his choice. He would protect the child, defend its people, and discover the meaning of this destiny. His life on Earth was gone, but a new life had begun, one filled with purpose. The cube floated back into his hands, warm and steady. Ethan smiled faintly. "All right," he said softly, "let's see where this takes us." He started walking down the mountain, into the strange world that stretched endlessly before him. He wasn't afraid anymore. He was ready.